It's Wednesday, May 22nd. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. We don't have enough homes being built, and that's a problem. Today's show is a look at the housing crisis through home building. I've got local industry leaders here. We will talk about where things are, where we need to be, and what might be getting in the way. And I'll kick things off for context with a stat from last September, which I think most of you, many of you anyways, will probably have heard it by now. According to the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, this province needs to build 10,000 more homes a year than it is already building for the next 6 years to meet demand. So a target of 60,000 units. Our best year, by the way, we hammered out somewhere in the range of 2,400 homes. I've been wanting more context on this, right? We keep talking about this housing crisis. We talk about a shortage of homes for what we need to keep up with demand. So I wanted an explainer, and so we can build on some of that context so all of us can learn together around this part of what is going on with housing in Newfoundland and Labrador. And I've got just the guests for this today. Alexis Foster, Executive Officer at Canadian Home Builders Association, Curtis Mercer, KMP Contracting, Andrew Street, Owner-Contractor at Street Property Development, Inc. And Andrew, you're also the president too, right?
Yes, that's right.
All right. I'm just keeping track of everyone's titles. Welcome. How are we all doing?
Doing great.
Great. When that number came out, I mean, Alexis, I know you're interviewed about this, but like when this number came out, 10,000 homes a year up until 2030, what, like, through each of you personally, what was your thought on that number?
I guess first off, for me, it was the number that was nationally was 5 million homes, which is unattainable.
Yeah.
And then when it's breaking down into the province of 10,000, it's astronomical to think. It's more than what we build in 10 years in total. So it's mind-boggling on how we think we can get there.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other thoughts on this and when that came out?
No, I definitely think it's going to be a reach, and that is putting it mildly. In order for us to build 10,000 homes, we're going to have to double, triple, do 4 times as what we normally build in our best year. When we're challenged with issues with development regulations, we're challenged with labor. So it's definitely a high number, and I don't know if it's realistic.
Where are we roughly right now for this year?
We have 155 starts, according to CMHC, from January to April, and we have increased from this time last year as well. So that is where we are standing.
Okay, so moving in the right direction, but
yes,
right, with a capital B. Okay, so that's where we are, 155 January to April. It should be, if that's your map, it should be much more than that. Well, let's just kind of put a pin in that. What does it take to build a home, one home?
Oh my goodness, just between you have to get your land, you have to, I will hand this over to my colleagues because they are the builders in the room.
Well, it starts at, your permitting and your land development. So that's really, if that part doesn't get fixed or doesn't happen, the rest is, it doesn't matter what you throw at it. That's really the beginning of it.
So permitting, land development, right? So with some municipality, if that's in order, right? Permitting, land development, it's all there. And let's just say, for the intents and purposes of this conversation, there's like water, sewage hookup, like everything's in place. What do you need to do then in order to get a home built if you just got a lot that's got nothing done with it except for the fact that it's been cleared?
Yeah, so basically then you're in your planning stage of picking out your plans and doing all that. You're getting your financing in place, finding a builder who has availability as one thing, and timelines, and then materials, and that sometimes has its ups and downs as well, and depending on the scale of thing that you're doing. But you're still also looking at a lot of time. If everything is in place, you're probably still looking at an 8, 9, 10 month build time, depending on the scale and size of home and where you're building.
From start to finish.
From start to finish.
That's if, like,
everything goes tickety-boo.
Right? So, from permitting to the labor and with this, I don't know if you guys noticed, in the last few years, things have gone up in price. So, like, and also there's been shortages of materials. What's that been like as part of the industry in recent years for where things are at?
costing has gone through the roof. Well, financing is high anyway, but on average across Canada for a 2,400 square foot home, we're about $50,000 higher than we were 3 years ago.
$50,000 higher than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
What then whether it's the media or out and about in conversations that you're having, when people are talking about a housing crisis nationally, provincially, and the need to build more homes, let's park that number away, the 10,000 or whatever. But like, where are you at with thinking of our ability to start to try to meet some of this demand? Like, how are we doing? Like, how are we set up right now?
We can definitely do a lot better. And that's putting it mildly, I think. We have to start addressing so many issues that we have. So there are issues around the development process. When we're seeing new funding coming in, be it provincial or federal, we're seeing different challenges attached to those different sources of funding. We're having issues with labor. Where are we going to find these people to build these homes? If we need to build 3 times more homes, 4 times more homes in the next 6 years, where are we going to find that 3-4 times more labor to help us build those homes? So we have such big challenges right now ahead of us.
Then let's get a description of, I guess, like your backstories, and then I guess an explanation of the industry itself. Alexis, talk about yourself.
Well, I am the executive officer for the Canadian Home Builders Association here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Yeah. We represent the residential construction sector of this province. We are part of the National Association as well. So we advocate on behalf of our members and consumers, federally and provincially. We try to make sure that consumers have choice and they have affordability when they're looking to buy homes. We want to make sure that our builders, our developers, are able to build the homes that they want to, that they have access to the resources that they need, and that there aren't things that are slowing down development when we need to speed it up.
And what were you doing before this? You were in Fort Mac for a bit too,
right? I was the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in Fort McMurray for several years.
What's it like from going from there to here and just looking at the differences in industries and stuff?
Oh, there's quite a bit of a difference. We were actually talking earlier today just around the e-permitting side of things and how Fort McMurray is very advanced on that. I applied for a permit for a property up there, and it took less than a week, and it was a large renovation. And down here, we've had a member who's actually applied for a permit for a deck, and it's taken weeks.
For a deck? For
a deck, and everything has to be done on paper. There's no option to do e-permitting in many municipalities here. So
in
that is
2024.
It's a big difference, yes.
I guess they might have to fax something into probably, hey?
I don't know what the reasoning is. I know that it's a part of the Housing Accelerator Fund proposal from the City of St. John's that we should see something in the next year. So hopefully they can push that out very quickly, because things like decks, fences, renovations, they should be able to move those very quickly, or else we'll see the underground economy coming up, or we'll see people going ahead and doing work without pulling permits.
Yeah, which is like, I remember years ago I did pieces on sheds and around the metro area, and this was back in the times of, I guess they were built sans permits, right? Like, and you could see the differences, right? So you're like, oh, that's like a 3-story shed that's bigger than the house. And when you say the underground economy, what do you mean?
So anybody doing work for cash in our industry, residential construction is one of the largest parts of the underground economy in Canada, and in Newfoundland that's true as well. So
you have a hobble, isn't it, for the local term?
Maybe, yeah, do a little hobble for cash on the side. However, a lot of consumers don't realize when you take somebody who's doing work under the table that you're taking on a lot of liability as well. So if they don't have insurance, if they are not registered with Workplace NL, if there is an accident, then you may be held liable for their injuries as the homeowner. So that's something that we want people to be aware of.
Curtis, talk to me about K&B contracting and yourself.
So K&P is I'm second generation builder. I took over from my in-laws actually. K&P started in 1976, so we've been around for a few years.
Yeah, I was like, when I knew you were coming on the show, I was like, I've heard this name. I've heard it for a while.
Yeah, we've been around. We've been doing different things throughout the years, residential, commercial, renovations, and I've been involved since 2013, and kind of just changing the company to meet today's marketplace and what we can do through renovations and new homes. We're also high into energy efficiency and building envelope and helping homeowners and other builders find issues with water ingress and air leakage and those types of things. My previous life, I actually worked in municipalities as town manager, so I'm quite familiar with the permitting process on that side of things and limitations, and so it's kind of helped me through.
Yeah. That's a bit of an asset.
Yeah, it definitely has helped. So I went from municipal to federal and then into private sector, so
That's amazing.
kind of had a little bit of all factors.
When you talked about modernizing the business, what do you mean?
So as our housing market has kind of changed a lot in the past number of years, we were in a boom, then we were in a bust. We had a lot of people during COVID wanting to do renovations rather than build new homes. So we kind of modeled the business year to year based on market. The other thing that we're trying to do to kind of, as we talked about, there's a labor shortage. So we're in the process now of changing some of our processes to increase technology and how do we build more with less people through panelization or modular building and these types of things.
Wow. Right on. Andrew, what about yourself?
Founder of the company. I've been in the industry since 2008. So, and I've had the company on the go since, for the last 11, 12 years. We do all renovations, mostly interior. So we get to see all the lovely work that people have done before us, that probably without permits, and all the fun stuff that goes along with that.
Oh, okay. I've talked about this on the show before, having just bought a home, but like going through some other homes with like a home inspector, the number of times it's just like certain comments about work that's been done, right, over the years. Because if you can get whoever in that underground economy that you're talking about, Alexis, to do some of the work, it can be, sometimes the results can be interesting.
Yeah, it creates a pretty big headache for us sometimes because we've got to not only start off, where we should be starting off, we got to actually go back even further and, do additional work, a lot of times at an extra cost to the client, because, there was work done without permits or was under the table, that type of thing.
What's it like working in the industry for you? What do you like about it?
Oh, I always liked renovations because there's always something different. So, you're not faced with the same, I did a bit of framing and stuff when I first started in the business, and I found it a little bit boring myself. Yeah. But I found with renovations, you get into different things all the time. You got to problem solve, a little bit more intimate with the client. To discuss what exactly they're looking for, more tailored to their needs. We do a little bit of like aging in place stuff. Like I've got some training on aging in place as well, which is gratifying for trying to help somebody make their space more user friendly.
Yeah, no, totally right. It's important stuff. Then when you look at the shortage, right, and what we're talking about, what do each of you think? I can say we need more homes, right? But it's a lot more complicated than that. In a way, it is that, but another way, there's different types of homes that people are going to need. So, what do we need in order to keep up with demand for your understandings?
Everything.
Everything. Okay.
Yes. Great answer, Curtis.
Yeah, no, it's a big thing is densification.
Yeah.
And as typical Newfoundlanders, everybody likes their own home, single family, detached. As we move forward, market conditions aren't going to allow everybody to have that, especially not starting up front. So we need more additions of duplexes, subsidiary apartments, basement apartments, triplexes, fourplexes. Anything that we can put more units, not necessarily homes, but units on a smaller lot so that we can get more people into either renting or home ownership and be able to move up the housing continuum. So we do need a mix of high-rise, low-rise, mid-rise, single-family, duplex, triplex, a mix of everything because there are people in the market that need something out of everything.
Right. Because this is that we talk about affordable housing, right? But then it's also housing affordability.
Yes.
What? Because you've talked about that with CBC before.
Yes.
Can you explain? I think I understand the difference with it, but can you just explain it?
Yeah, so a lot of time affordable housing is thought about as being government subsidised.
Yeah.
That is not what it's supposed to be, but that is what's is associated with it. And what we've been seeing is sometimes with our provincial government, some of the programs that they're putting out are actually subsidised housing. And while we need subsidised housing, as Curtis was saying, we need every type of housing across the continuum. So affordable housing, as it's defined by CMHC, is that housing that costs less than 30% of the household's before tax income.
Mm-hmm.
So that really ranges based on what your income is. So if you make $30,000 a year, you can afford $750 a month for your housing costs. If you make $150,000 a year, you can afford $3,750 for housing. So there's really that continuum, there's that range for everybody on what is affordable. So I think, unfortunately, that's been marred a little bit sometimes. We do need subsidized housing. It's part of the housing continuum, but we need all types of housing for everybody because, as Curtis said, you have some people who want to live in that standalone home, and there's nothing wrong with that. You get to choose what type of home you want to live in. Maybe you want to live in a little condo downtown. That's fine too, but we need to have the options there for everybody.
And the range, right? So we've talked about this a fair bit on the show. We've done many shows on housing, and we'll do shows. We've done them talking about what's been called as tent city, right? And the supports from shelters that are needed, and what's needed for wraparound supports once you get into some kind of housing, and affordable housing units that get built. And then it's a housing affordability conversation that we're having right now. So you have the range from, yes, if you want your standalone with like a 2-car garage or something and the higher end, more expensive thing, or if it's that condo, or if it's a 4-plex or whatever else, but without the options. And with prices going up on houses and with everything else, then we get to be in the situation that we're in. What have you heard then that is helping pave the way, so to speak, for more homes that you think, hey, this is working so far?
Well, there are a bunch. Obviously, there's a housing crisis. Everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
The provincial government, the federal government have been pushing out programs and highlighting the fact that we need more homes. So probably the biggest one that we've seen across the country is the Federal Government Housing Accelerator Fund, which a couple of municipalities have been approved for here in Newfoundland. And part of the caveat that goes along with the funding for the municipalities is being able to increase the number of homes built within that municipality.
Yeah.
And part of that goes with allowing densification, changing zoning to allow duplexes, triplexes where they currently aren't allowed, as long as space is there in the lot, then you can physically build them. So there's a mind shift, I think, coming that's now realizing we need to change the way we do. It's always been the NIMBY thing of not in my backyard. But people need to understand people need housing. And if you don't have the ability to have a full housing continuum and we can't build houses that meet different people's needs and budgets, then unfortunately we do end up with places like tent cities because they have nowhere else to go and we don't have the ability to put them in housing that suits their current needs.
Yeah. What federally, provincially, or at the local level, and you can feel free to take turns on this, what will help you do your jobs better to get these things built?
We definitely need continued engagement with the industry. That's something that has been done on some scale. However, it can be done in a better and more effective way.
Yeah.
Right now, we have some programs that were laid out. I will pick on one particular provincial program, and it is the basement subsidiary suite program that our provincial government has put out. And the way that program is right now, we don't believe that it is as effective as it can be about actually creating more housing units. There are a few too many restrictions on that program where you have to have everything in place before you actually apply. So you have to have your permit ready. So in some municipalities, that can cost you $900.
Oh, right.
So that is stopping.
So
people
right
from
away,
doing that.
so something that's supposed to help you,
Yes.
you need the entry point's $900 in
Yes,
some places.
and then you are limited on who you're allowed to rent that to. So if I wanted to rent an apartment to to my mother, then she has to be over 65 and she has to make under a certain threshold. I believe it's 30 or 40,000. And a lot of times if people are pulling a pension, then they can't qualify for that. And then you are limited on who you're able to rent that to. And if it's a parent and they want to rent it to their child, they're not permitted under that program.
So this is sounding like cost and a lot of different rules. What would you like to see change then?
We would love to see it a little bit more like the rebate program that the provincial government did a while ago. That program was phenomenal. Businesses had to register, prove that they were up to date on their insurance, up to date with Workplace NL, and then anybody could go out and apply for this fund. And that
was this for the home improvement rebate
It
one?
was, yeah.
So
And
yeah,
it
that was like a
phenomenal.
pandemic type.
It was.
Yeah, and you had a lot of work being done because it was really easy. I remember a lot of folks I know were talking about that because of essentially how easy it was.
Yes, exactly. So right now when we're talking about we need to build all these homes and all these different types of housing units, by removing some of those restrictions, we're still going to be freeing up other homes. So if anybody can build that subsidiary basement suite and you can choose what you want to live in that suite, that's phenomenal. Then that's taking somebody out of, say, an elderly person out of their full home that they can't manage
It's too
anymore.
big, right? Which is a part of the
Exactly.
issue with the baby boom generation and demographics in this province.
It is, exactly, so that they can move in with family, might be able to help family as well because things are hard right now. And then their home is open for another family and is opening up another unit. So that's something that we've seen, and we welcome more collaboration and conversations about these things because we are hearing from many of our members that unfortunately some of these programs that are meant to help are slowing or stopping development completely.
When in this process in this case we're talking about a provincial example, so when did the province talk to you folks about it?
They did when they were announcing it. They did before there was an affordable rental program, and they did have conversations with us around that and what we would like to see, how it would be more open and more how private industry would be more interested in actually participating in the program. So that was great. We really appreciated that. We would love to see it going forward too, because we know at the end of the day, the government does want to build these homes too. So let's work together and be more effective and build as many homes as we can.
And talk to you folks earlier to find out what's required or what some of maybe the folks haven't thought about things, and it's like, hey, here's some suggestions to make it a bit easier, right, for everything that you're laying out. Yeah. Any other thoughts then? That's the provincially. What else?
Yeah, so for us as builders, it obviously comes down to municipalities because that's who we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Yep. If the speed of processing of applications, the availability of land, which goes back to developments being approved by municipalities, and if that's not there, well, we can't build any faster because we're stonewalled at a point. The availability for us to build different types of homes in different places. But obviously a lot of that comes down to the municipalities need support from the provincial government to be able to make the changes, and provincial government needs support from the federal government. The hardest thing that I find is we have 3 levels of government who recognize that there's a housing crisis and we need more homes, and they're all putting out ideas, but they're not all in line. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we have the federal government announced that they were going to relieve HST or GST on purpose-built rentals.
Yep.
Which was a big business hurdle for people building them because you couldn't get your HST or your GST back out. Then the provincial government came on board and said, yep, we will do the same thing. So you could basically get your – but here in Newfoundland, where we're building – a lot of our rentals are duplexes or triplexes, depending on your zoning. But the program requires that you have a minimum of 4 units on one building lot. In most cases, if we wanted to build even a duplex, the zoning requirements mean that we have to separate them on 2 separate surveys. So they're no longer eligible for your GST rebate. So you've just added 15% back onto the cost.
Right.
So there goes your housing affordability. It still meets everything else. It's just there's an imaginary line drawn between the center of the house, so it's no longer eligible.
So whether from the local, the community, provincial, federal level, folks need to kind of get on the same page. They need to look at what they have, talk to industry folks who are doing the building, who are doing the developing, to get rid of red tape, to make things easier so that more can be built. So that this is part of it, right?
And more affordable as well. So as Curtis was saying, if you're not getting that GST, HST forgiveness, then that cost is going to go down to the homeowner, the home buyer. So that's something that consumers need to be aware of as well. It's not just adding cost to the builders, it's adding cost to what it would cost you to actually purchase your home.
So if we get all of this out of the way, right, if all of that all of a sudden magically gets ironed out, then we still have a labor shortage here. How do we solve that?
Labor shortage is going to be a hard one. To me, you're not going to get enough labor to fill the shortages that you have. So it's an increase in people going into the trades and understanding you can make a really good career out of it. So getting more people into it. It's a combination of immigration and bringing in the right people. And as CHBA nationally, it's a conversation we've been having about the immigration program and how people are brought in, because it doesn't necessarily bring in skilled trades. They're more highly skilled doctors and these, but they also can't work in their trades when they get here. So there's a full down program. The other thing that we need to do is change the way that we did. And as I said earlier, we need to modernize our businesses. Yeah. We need to be able to do more with less people. And how do we do that? And we can start building off-site and transitioning, being more efficient and different things. So there's a lot of efficiencies that we need to bring into the program and the way that us as builders build ourselves to do things quicker with less people.
So then who helps with that? Because not everyone can, like, you've got a very unique skill set for what you do, right? Not every company is going to have someone like yourself who's worked at a municipal level, worked at a federal level, and come back in. So for other companies around the province, I know, like, you've got an organization association that can help with this, but is there more provincial involvement needed? Like, what else is needed here to kind of help, I guess, upskill in a way, a generational shift for some of the builders that we have?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more conversation about where we need to be. And there's a lot of conversation about what we need, but not a lot of conversation about how we get there. Okay. And I think that's what we need is a combination of the different parts of the industry. Like for us, we're working with other companies who can offer services that make our life easier and speed things up. So there's a lot of things coming that I think will help, but it's getting people on board. And Newfoundland is very difficult in that way. This is not the way my grandfather built a house. This is not the way. And we always look at it now and say, well, how many years ago was it that you actually seen somebody come into your house and build cabinets on site? You would think it's crazy to do now. So why would you do it with your house? Yeah. Build parts of it off-site and bring it on, put it together. It's built in a better environment because it's probably built inside. There's less moisture and all this kinds of stuff. So, and we can do it quicker. Yeah. So, but it's not something that's common to Newfoundland. And it's only through my ability to travel around the country through CHBA and meet other builders to learn what's being done elsewhere, that we can start bringing the information here and hopefully have people listen and understand that there are things that can be done to give you a better home for hopefully more affordable and in quicker timelines and be able to meet more market demand.
Yeah, so better home, more affordable, also energy efficient nowadays, built for a home that can last and save you money on electricity and everything else, right? Yeah. Andrew, what's it like for you when you're looking for folks for work when we're talking about this labor shortage?
I find it really difficult to get skilled people. Yeah. It's becoming more and more. Yeah. A few years ago, Buildforce put out, their projections on where things
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that data. Yeah,
and we're way off where we should be. We're with the aging population, I guess, and more people are retiring than are going into the trade. So yeah, it's not. It's something we probably should have done years ago. Getting into the high schools, let's see this coming from a mile away. But now it's almost okay. We can still do that, but we're a bit late to the party.
Yeah, I find we talk with healthcare. Folks talk a lot about just here's the system. We're trying to reinvent it with like the health accord, right? So some stuff you just can't fix right away because you need more nurses or doctors or whatever, right? I'm being very general with this metaphor I'm using. Same thing if we're looking at masons and carpenters and everything else. If you don't have them, they don't just appear tomorrow. They either have to be brought in, trained, or they have to be trained. And even if folks are coming in for newcomers, whether it's from across the country or other countries, they're still getting used to the environment here. So all of that takes time in a time when we're saying, well, we need to build thousands upon thousands of more homes.
And part of that is it's hard to find skilled trades. It's hard to find anybody. We will train them on site if need be.
We just need warm
we
bodies.
need people.
Wow.
And call a spade a spade. We find it hard to find people that will actually show up.
Yeah.
5 days a week or 6 days a week, whatever it is. And every industry is the same. You can find help wanted signs anywhere.
Yeah.
It's hard to find people. And I don't know where they went.
Yeah.
But since the COVID pandemic, it's been very difficult to find people who will actually show up every day, put in a day's work. And then, like I said, we can train them or send them off for apprenticeship training and all these types of things. But labor is an issue, skilled or unskilled.
So, like, on the optimism to pessimism line for building the homes we need, where are we? Because I'm just gauging from the conversation I'm hearing so far.
We won't meet those targets.
No.
It's impossible.
But, like, will we even, and I know, because those numbers were gigantic, right? Compared to, but even if you look at best year ever, what was it, 2,400 homes? Are we going to get back to that?
I think with the right processes and right programs in place, we have the ability to meet 2,400 units. Mm-hmm. They're going to be of different style than they were when we had 2,400 starts before. Yeah. But I think we have the ability to reach that. How much further we can go, it's going to take time.
And a lot of collaboration as well between all levels of government, private, public. Like, we're all going to have to come together and try to identify these are the obstacles to development. How can we work together to reach, even if it's 3,000? Like, let's get further ahead than what we are. We can do it. We need to do it. So it's just got to be a collaborative effort.
Yeah, look at what needs to be done, set a realistic goal, and figure out how to do it. Are you surprised that with all the talking, municipal governments, the provincial government, and we'll say provincial governments across the country, and the federal government, all the talking that they've done, are you surprised that there's not more togetherness on this and that you don't have those realistic targets set yet?
I wouldn't say that I'm surprised by it. It's so many moving pieces. Yeah. You've got so many different municipalities that you're dealing with. Everybody is doing the best that they can. With what resources they have. That's how I like to view it. I might be being a bit optimistic sometimes, but and we have been seeing that many of the municipalities are willing to work with us too when we bring forward these are some issues for development. So that is something that I'm happy to see, and I'm hopeful that as we go forward, we will continue to see that. We've been able to work with the City of St. John's a little bit more recently, and we're hopeful that we will see some tangible results out of that about addressing some of these barriers to development. But we will see what actually comes from that in the next little while. You're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Today on the show, we are talking about home building and the housing crisis. What's being built? And can we build more is really the question, right? And what needs to change to make that happen? If you've got thoughts as you're listening, text us 709-327-8206. Email us thesignal@cbc.ca. Call the Signal line and leave a message, 709-576-5260. Here with me in the studio, we've got Alexis Foster, Executive Officer, Canadian Home Builders Association, Curtis Mercer, KMP Contracting, Andrew Street, Owner-Contractor at Street Property Development, Inc. I'm going to go to a call out. We've got David Brake on the line, the Vice Chair for Happy City. So Alexis was just mentioning St. John's. Well, there are public consultations happening today and tomorrow in St. John's. David Brake, how you doing?
I'm very good, thanks. I'm delighted to been fascinating listening in, and I hope I will learn more as the consultations go on. That people will be motivated to come along and pitch in.
First off, any thoughts on what you heard on the show so far?
Well, I guess I didn't come expecting to hear that it's all going to be fine, and we'll get there. Yeah. But and it's interesting to hear a bit more about the broader picture provincially and federally. But absolutely clear that this is a very complex issue that involves all levels of government and the private sector, and right here on the ground, it involves your neighbors too, right? Something that came out when the the council announced that it was going to be changing some of its regulations, I remember Sheila Leary and a few of the other councillors saying, if we want to address the housing crisis, it's part of it is on you, the broader public, to accept that houses need to be built somewhere, and that might be around the corner from you.
Yeah,
so.
It could be in your neighbor's backyard. It could be a fourplex down the road. Accepting it is the fact that next to you there's going to be more density. Tell me about these conversations, or consultations, I should say, that are happening tonight and tomorrow.
There are 38 pages of changes being made to the development regulations, which is in itself a 177-page document.
Yeah.
Those were unveiled about a month ago exactly. We've been scrambling to try and make sense of them, and so we hope that others have been doing the same. That's why we're putting together a report to try and help people understand the implications. Hopefully I can go into some of them with you today. But
okay. So there's a lot of changes coming in. They're going for 2 nights. They're saying, hey, public, we want you to go through all this stuff that we have for what we're proposing, and we want to hear what you think about it. So then for yourself, David Brake, as vice chair for Happy City, what do you think about what's Happy City saying about the city's need for housing and its approach?
Well, we're really trying to shine a light on does what they've announced sound like it might have the effect desired, right? Mm-hmm. Or to what extent is it going to? We've heard numbers being bandied around like 4,100 units in a decade being attributed in some fashion to these planned changes. Mm-hmm. And when we've been looking closer and closer, and it's not too surprising. The regulatory changes and subsidies that they're planning should have a beneficial effect, but it's not clear how much effect they will really have. And I think there's a little lack of clarity that is understandable when the city and the feds announced $10.4 million and 400 units in the next 3 years. People might think, oh, that means that money is going to build those units, and it's not. What the city of St. John's is planning, and it makes some sense, is to take that money, put some of it towards subsidies to the developers like the ones you have in the room with you, in the studio with you, so that there's a subsidy for homeowners or developers to encourage them to build those units, and also they're going to put some money, we don't know how much, but a good deal of that money will go towards things like e-permitting and making it easier for developers to get through the paperwork to get the shovels in the ground. But none of it is directly going to be, here's some money, build a apartment building here. It's all greasing the wheels, and the question is, how easy will it be for developers and homeowners? Will they want to? I mean, this is a very unanswerable question. Will people want to build subsidiary units in their homes now that they are more able to technically? And if they do want to, and they're now allowed to in principle, because a lot of the changes are to do with allowing things in where they weren't allowed before, will other things that remain in the regulations prevent them effectively from doing that? We're still trying to nail down, give some concrete examples where this might be the case. But you can imagine the part that I can get in my head most easily is about parking minimums. So at the moment, by and large, if you have for each unit of housing, you generally need to provide one parking spot. If you're taking a duplex, you're trying to make it into a fourplex, you might technically be able to do so, but you also have to find a place to put that parking space.
Right.
And there are other places which have been cutting the requirement for parking at all, or substantially reducing it in in Halifax, they have recently, actually yesterday, put to for final approval, in suburbs, they're going to go from needing 1.5 parking spaces per unit to 1 parking space for every 3 units.
Right.
And I hope that your guests who are still there can comment on how much of a difference they would make if they were able to change up the amount of parking space that they were required to provide for larger spaces, whether it make a big difference to the economics. There are some moves in the proposed new changes that would make some small difference, but there isn't these. Even though there's 38 pages of changes, they're not sweeping changes like the ones we're seeing in some of these other municipalities. And so the question is, if you technically allow some new development and new densification, but you don't change the parameters of what other things are required, like ability to service them with water and so on, or the requirements for parking spaces and so on. If those changes don't accompany them, will it happen?
Excellent, David. Thank you for coming on the show. And the consultations are tonight and tomorrow in St. John's for folks. I appreciate the Happy City perspective on this. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for asking us on. And we do hope to get some answers on these
David,
in the process.
Excellent. Thank you, David. David Brake is the vice chair for Happy City. So, but again, this comes down to we're talking about, trying to make some changes. He said like 38 pages or whatever, but none of them sweeping, but changes nonetheless. And then it's like, well, but actually, what does this mean for what people want compared to the reality? And will some of the other rules that are already in place actually stop us from making some of the changes that we want as we're trying to push forward to build more homes? So any thoughts on what David had to say there for those of you here in studio?
Well, it's very similar to what I said when we were talking about government. Everybody has to sing from the same songbook. We'll use
there you
that,
go.
right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. If you're going to make a change, but yet there's something else in your bylaw that prohibits the change from actually happening. One of the things that I've seen is the rear yard suites, garden suites, whatever the city is calling them. It could be a garage conversion, it could be a small suite built in the backyard for either a university student or somebody like that. It's great, but the devil's in the details is how is that unit going to be serviced? Can it be serviced from existing services from the existing house? Does it need to go back to the street? In some locations, that may be very difficult, depending on side yard locations. And do you have easements and all these types of things? So, beside the cost of doing that, so that may limit. And I don't know the answer to that question.
No,
so
right? That's what David was saying too, right? Because they don't know yet for a lot of stuff.
So, and this is some of the questions that they are doing consultation with developers, I believe, on Friday. So that's one of the questions that I have is where exactly are you lining these details, and is it blanket? And if so, great. I think that there are going to be some beneficial changes there, but it's like everything. Once you get down to the actual details on how it's going to work, what's the cost going to be, and does it work? The parking one, it's a great thing. As we densify, especially within the city where we have public transportation, it's good if we can use it, and people should get more and more on board with using public transportation as we densify.
Metrobus users are up, right? They got loads of users now. Now it's just about maybe more buses and more bus runs and having the whole thing function better.
And it's kind of, we don't do it until we get the people, but we can't have the people without it. So it's, chicken and egg type
There is an argument to be made. The people are there now, but I'll save that for a different show.
There's things like that, but some stuff that we've seen in other municipalities across the country is rather than having on-site parking, having neighborhood parking. Yeah. So if you already have 2 units and you're now converting to 4, but you have a street where you probably have 10 or 12 duplexes exactly now, and you densify, and that creates now another 40 units. Well, is there a small plot of land where we can do community parking? Sure. So you only have to walk down the block and get your car rather than right into your driveway. But part of the thing that we need to do also is it's the mentality of the people who are going to live there. Yeah. You may not park right in front of your home, right? And it's part of it is it's not only the NIMBY, not in my backyard. It's what people have to accept as, well, housing is changing. My dynamic is changing. This may be what I can afford today, and I need to live with this. And then in 5 or 10 years' time, I can upgrade. And then that will be more affordable as I move through life and people move through the housing continuum. So I think it's a change. I think the city is doing a good job in addressing some of the things to increase densification. until all of the details are out, it's hard to know what the exact demand is going to be. I know as a contractor, we have had calls. Oh, well, when the city does this, can I do this in my basement? Can I do this in my backyard? Can I? Maybe is the answer right now. I don't really know. So that's what we're trying to figure out. So there is pent-up demand for people that want to do this. People want to supplement their income. Their mortgages have just doubled. Anybody had to renew their mortgage over the past couple of years. So they're looking at ways to supplement that. And can I add a subsidiary apartment and these types of things?
And can you add the subsidiary apartment, and can you do it in a half-timely manner, right? As opposed to the paperwork around permitting, and in a world where, and I'm not sure which community you referenced earlier about the deck, but in a world where in many communities in this country, it can take a while to get a permit for something as simple as a deck. If things aren't kind of sped up, then what's the point, right? Like, because you're not fixing things. Things are taking longer. You're not solving things in a way that, like, I guess the intent is there.
But to that point, you also have to be careful. We live in a very unregulated industry.
Yeah.
Newfoundland has 260-odd municipalities. There are only 6 that do inspections.
6 that do
Yes.
inspections. I did not know that.
So the ones that are fast don't necessarily mean that they're better, because you're getting a permit, but what does the permit actually mean?
Right.
What is the product that you're getting, because nobody's inspecting it?
So how does that get fixed?
Well, our province doesn't adopt a national building code.
Right.
We're the only province in Canada that doesn't adopt it. They push it down to the municipalities. Most of the municipalities push it down to whoever pulls the permit, and just keeps pushing the liability down the street. As a contractor, most of my competitors, I don't mind bidding on a job against Andrew, because I know we're doing comparable things.
And Andrew's a good fellow.
Andrew's a good fellow. But it's the people who are building outside of these municipalities and are building houses the same way that they were built 10, 15 years ago, which is not the way code is today. And code is there today to keep people safe, to keep their housing costs, not necessarily their purchase cost, but their operating costs through energy efficiency and these types of things down. But that's being missed. And then some people are actually getting cheaper homes, but they're not necessarily higher quality homes.
Right. Alexis?
So we have been advocating for a while for something called a builder or a renovator licensing, where you would be required to go and get a license similar to real estate agents, mortgage brokers, and it shows that you would take training that's necessary. You would follow the building code. All of our members are required to have a warranty program for new home builds. So it's just another avenue to protect the consumer, especially in those areas where we don't have inspections. This would let you know, you have somebody who's doing your job. They know what they're doing. You're getting a quality product at the end of the day. As Curtis said, your costs of operating that home are down, and you know that you're walking into something that's safe for you and your family.
And we don't have it.
We don't have it.
When you talk to folks about it, like the province, what do they tell you?
They have been looking at it.
That's a common response for when people go to them,
It is. It's been taking a while, and we have actually been reaching out to the municipalities. So we did attend the municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador symposium in Gander a couple of weeks ago, just to talk about this, because it is about consumer protection. And a lot of times people think that we just represent the builders, and it is in the best interest of our builders too. We professionalize the industry, but it is about protecting consumers, making sure that you have affordability and choice, and when you walk in, okay, the person who built your home is building it up to code. They're not building it up to what somebody built 20 years ago. You don't have an HRV. You don't have that they're making sure that your home is built as it should be so that you can live in it longer and more affordably.
And if folks are kind of wondering whether it's a reno or a new home build or whatever else, if they're like, gosh, who should I go to? Is there a way to find this out?
There is. So we've got a great website, chbanl.ca. We actually have a directory of all of our members on that website. It's a great resource. And we actually have a new thing called a bid portal. So anybody can go onto our bid portal, put in their project, put a little description about it, your budget, and your contact information. And that is sent just to our members.
That's really neat. And so bid portal, what's the range of stuff for a bid portal?
Oh, it could be like 500 to over 100,000. It could be a new home build. Anything can come in through there.
Right. Okay. So, like, if you own like a home that's like, I don't know, 17 years old, and there's some wood damage from like it wasn't, maybe it's worn away, and you need some new stuff installed there, you could put a bid in.
You can.
I'm just wondering. That's a highly just I just made up an example off the top of my head.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the we only have a couple minutes left. If we look ahead to, let's just say 5 to 10 years from now, where would you like to see things as far as the industry goes and builds and everything else from what we've been talking about here today?
I'd love to see us having the contractor licensing. It's a professional industry. When you're getting somebody to build your home or renovate your home, you know the product you're going to get. You're protected as well. And we are working in an environment of collaboration where we work with the municipalities, the provincial government, federal government as well, to make sure that those limitations and those obstacles that are sometimes in our way are mitigated to the best of our abilities. That's what I would love to see.
And would you, to get folks together, what more needs to happen to get them together on this? Like, because you're advocating. Are they hearing? Are they hearing and listening to you?
Some definitely are.
Okay.
We are hearing from some municipalities. We're hopeful. City of St. John's is continuing to work with us. We've been fortunate enough to start a developers committee with them and some of our larger developers to really talk about some of the big challenges that they have. And so far, they've been willing to work with us. So we will see what comes out of those conversations in the next little while.
Okay. Curtis, what about yourself?
I'd love to see the industry thriving where it needs to be, and through collaboration, labor, and innovation, a way to build more homes quicker, and ideally, as a business owner, get rid of our wild, wild west and actually have every house built properly throughout the province.
Every house to code. That is your motto.
Yep.
There you go. Andrew, what about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with Curtis and Alexis. Having that contractor licensing piece there, that would be a huge win for everybody.
Yeah.
There's so much good to say about it. I really don't know why this is not happening. Also, like Curtis said, a move into modular and some factory built type setups so that we're actually getting things moving quicker in a more controlled environment. And absolutely the training. It needs to be like at the high school level or even before that probably.
Get folks interested.
Get people interested, show them what the benefits are. Like you can have a really, really good career in the construction field and make, really good money and, good benefits. And but I don't know if that's getting through to everybody out there.
And for the modular stuff, how difficult would it be to have more of it here?
It's right now, there's a little bit of stigma between modular in the province because the previous things that we've had in the province of modular are basically trailer parks.
Yeah.
Modular has come a long way since that. There are some coming here, but until we get municipalities on board to accept them as a building practice, some municipalities won't accept them because of they can't see how it's being built, but which is funny because they don't do inspections anyway. So it's,
irony.
Exactly. So it's a little bit of consumer uptake and understanding of what the product actually is.
Yeah.
And our biggest constraint on full-on modular is shipping.
Okay.
It's difficult to get around our province.
Yeah. I've heard that rumor.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for this. It's been a great chat. I appreciate it. All right, Alexis Foster, Curtis Mercer, Andrew Street. Like I said, thank you so much, folks. That's it for another episode of The Signal. And if you want to know what we all look like, we're going to pop the show up on YouTube later. Typically later this afternoon. Every so often it's the morning after. But we're CBC Newfoundland and Labrador's YouTube page. We put shows up for you to watch, and they're shareable. We're also available on the CBC Listen app and wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow on the show, we're talking about The Mrs. Downstairs, which is starting its third season. Here's some names for you. Mary Walsh, Ruth Lawrence, Renee Hackett, Dave Sullivan, all on tomorrow's show. We're going to talk about the making of The Mrs. Downstairs, what happens when you keep getting these seasons, and I don't know, anything else that great, amazing, fantastically talented crowd wants to talk about. Until tomorrow, thanks for listening.